Right, how's it going? Okay, so the A1 series of plugins by Alex Hilton, such as the A1 Stereo Control and the A1 Trigger Gate, which I did a video on that a while back. I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to check that out. Well, I am delighted, blessed, and quite honoured, to be honest, that Alex Hilton has reached out to me with the latest version of their A1PrimeDelay plugin, which is version 1.2. Now, while you might say, why would I need another delay plugin? Let me just stop you there for a minute, because this one does have some additional features, one of which is fairly unique, which I think you'll agree, and that's something that I'll be looking at in this video. And also stick around, because I'll be giving you my dedicated coupon code, which means for a limited time only, you'll be able to get this plugin 100% free. So with that said, let's take a look at the A1PrimeDelay by Alex Hilton. Okay then, so just quickly looking at the website, we can see some of the features that are actually in this plugin. There's the analog style resonant filter in the feedback loop. There's analog modeled low pass, band pass and high pass. The ducker, which has been enhanced in version 1.2. Also the transient softening, which it says is completely overhauled in this version. There's also high quality saturation, which is oversampled, which is great. There's additional chorus and room reverb. There's also dedicated low and high cut filters. There's the flutter and wow delay modulation. And last but not least, a stereo widener all in the one plugin. So that just quickly covers some of the features. Looking at the plugin, when you first load it up, this is what you get, and this is a simplified view of the plugin, which I will say is resizable, which is always handy. When you first open it up, you get the basic controls in front of you, which is the feedback amount, obviously the timing, which at the minute is synced to the host, and then the wet and dry mix. And here we can switch between ping pong, which is, the kind of classic left and right, or we can turn that off. And there's different models here. There's the A1 Modern, A1 Classic, and a merge of the left and right, which I'm not really going to play with at the moment. Also, we've got an input and output control, a limiter, which we can turn off and on. We've also got presets. There's a lot of presets to look through, and I haven't gone through all of those yet, but there are definitely some presets in this to choose from. This is the button that I'm interested in here, where it says Expert, and very nicely animated, it comes up with all of these additional controls. Now, I will say I only installed this plugin a few days ago, so I am still finding my way around it, but it's fairly intuitive as we go through it. And from left to right, just quickly, we've got the filter section over here, which is the filter control for the actual feedback loop, and these green buttons up here can turn some of these controls off and on. So fairly straightforward. We've got the filter, the resonance, and the blend. So yeah, over here we can combine the left and right amount of the delay and also the feedback crossover amount, which it says, obviously it's got all your tooltips down here, and it says set the amount of crossover mixing of left and right signal within the feedback loop. And the combine actually sets the amount of left and right signal into each other before going into the feedback, which sounds a little bit complicated, but in a sense, this gives you some control over the stereo image of the delay. Moving down here, we've got the kind of classic tape effects, I would say. The wow and the flutter, which is kind of like almost like a modulation, giving that kind of old classic retro tape feel. And we've got some additional control over the speed and so on. And up here, unaligned, this is quite interesting. So you can set the wow to be the same in both left and right, or you can have it unaligned, which will give you more of an interesting stereo effect. Then moving on down here, we've got dirt, which we can turn on, and this is a simulated tape noise. So again, bringing some of that kind of retro, possibly lo-fi feel to it. We can turn the dirt on and off, and we have color and also width. to add to that as well. And this section here, which I'm going to come back to in a minute, but down here we've got saturation, which we can turn off and on, and it's also got the saturation quality, medium and high, which I guess is the oversampling. And also here, when we turn up the saturation, it can get a little bit loud, so we've also got the trim option there as well to bring that volume back down. So I guess we can do a bit of gain staging that way. Moving on to this section here, we've got the chorus and the rate. I'm sure everybody's familiar with what chorus is. And what is interesting here as well, we've got reverb. We've got a room reverb, which we can turn off and on, set the amount and also the size of that reverb on the delayed signal. And down here, we've got low cut and high cut. And last but not least, a stereo widening effect. So as you can see, there's quite a lot going on here already. But this is the section that I wanted to come back to and give you some audio examples of. So to start off with, I've actually got the A1PrimeDelay on the drum bus, and I'm going to bypass it for a moment so you can hear what the drums are doing on their own. So the reason I put it on there is because obviously we've got the transient of the snare, and with that I can give you a really good example of what the transient softening is doing. So I'm going to put the delay on to this drum bus for now. And as you can hear the delay, the feedback loop on that drum signal and specifically on the snare. And with this here, the softening amount, I'll give you an example, but what it's actually doing is taming or softening or designing the transients of the feedback loop. So I'll show you what I mean now. Let's add a little bit more so you can really hear it. So as you can hear, the transients have been completely reshaped in the delay signal. And if I bring them back in, you've got the snap of the snare continuing on in the feedback loop. And then obviously we can then soften those, which completely changes the sound. And there's also a soft transient sensitivity. So if we turn that up, then the actual transient designing will be more sensitive to kind of softer and more subtle transients. We've also got the ducking mode, which is essentially a little bit like a side chain, where it will duck the initial signal of the delay. This can be very useful for things like vocals, especially where it just stops the delayed signal getting in the way of the original dry signal. And obviously there's a recovery, or I guess, you know, a sort of release time for that as well, how quickly the ducking then recovers after it's ducked. So obviously if the recovery is down, you can see how slow the ducker is recovering, and if we turn that up, that is a fast recovery, and we can see there the green animation going back. While it's on this sound, I will go through a couple more of these parameters so you can really hear what's going on, particularly the dirt and the saturation. You can hear that tape noise in the background there, and the saturation, of course. And as you can hear, the feedback loop is getting saturated. We can then trim it back down. So we've got the saturated signal, but we can gain stage it. And a little bit of room reverb, perhaps. So as you can see, with some of these controls, you can really start to shape the ambience and the tone of the sound. Now, I'm only using it on drums at the moment, and I'm going to move away from that just quickly. And what I've actually got it on as well in this track, I've tried to find a pluck synth that's got, you know, a very snappy transient, so we can sort of dial in some of these controls and maybe get it back to sounding a little bit more ambient and not so sort of sharp within that feedback loop. So you can hear that kind of ambience already coming through. And obviously if I reduce the softening of the transients, you'll hear that snappy transient start to come back in. I just wanted to say at this point that the results are kind of similar to when you take a delay and you send it to a bus, but you turn off the output of that bus. You then send that bus to another bus and do some additional processing there, like applying reverb, for example, so that you can then actually process the feedback of the delay. But of course, with this plugin and the way it's laid out, you don't have to do any of that additional routing. You can really get some nice ambience from right within the plugin, which I have to say is definitely helpful and convenient from a workflow point of view. And yeah, for some of those ambient sounds, especially with modern productions and electronic music, I think there's definitely a lot of flexibility in this plugin, and it sounds great. And some other information that I did get on this plugin is that the sort of new, in this particular version, the new Nova soft transient engine and the new ducking algorithm, they don't have any noticeable distortion anymore. And in contrast with other delay plugins that offer these kind of features, quite often they will have problems with distortion. Which is kind of noticeable on soft chords and can sound a little bit problematic. But the PrimeDelay version 1.2 handles this very easily, and you don't get that kind of noticeable distortion with the new improved Nova engine that is in this plugin. So that is just something that I wanted to mention. And yes, really, with some of these controls, it is a game changer in terms of what kind of sounds you can get and the kind of ambience you can get via delay instead of, having to put the reverb on and the other kind of processing that we might do. So I think altogether, where I've literally just put this very basic tune together and I'm using the A1PrimeDelay across a few instruments and including these vocals that are in it, you can really hear some of the ambience coming through compared to, how this track was when it was completely dry. And, I'll just tweak some of the parameters while it's playing back just to give you an idea of what it's doing. So there you have it. And while I haven't gone into all of these controls in any great depth, some of these parameters you might find in other delay plugins, particularly low cut and high cut filters, that kind of thing, which of course is very handy when it comes to the mixing stage. But this is a great plugin and it's very tidy. I like the way it's laid out. It's very straightforward, but at the same time is a little bit more complex, and it just has a little bit more to give than some other delay plugins, certainly that I've used anyway. So that's it, the A1PrimeDelay, and you can give it a try. The demo version will run for 42 days and it doesn't have any white noise or intermittent cutouts or anything like that, which can be really annoying when you get some demo versions of plugins. But you don't need to worry about the demo version, at least not for now, because for a limited time only, if you use the coupon code A1Shotty2025, which I will leave in the description as well, but if you enter that at checkout, you can get the plugin 100% free, and that is for a limited time only, which is why I wanted to have a quick look at this plugin and a quick run through some of the features, especially the transient shaping, and I hope you found the video useful. And of course, you know, if I've missed anything or you have something to share about this plugin, please do let me know in the comments. Definitely, I think it will replace some of my go-to delays, definitely going forward. You can find all the information down in the description, and of course, let me know what you think. If you like this video or you found it useful, please do give it a like and subscribe. I will be back with more. And also, if you want to listen to the music that I make using these plugins, I'll leave links in the description to that as well. And I will also say a big thank you to Alex Hilton as well. Thank you very much for reaching out. So that's it for this video. Until the next one, take it easy, stay creative, keep smiling, sound.